Meanwhile, the September jobs report is out tomorrow morning, the first one since the enhanced federal unemployment benefits ended. A recent survey from hiring firm Challenger J& Christmas showed job announcements surging to the highest level in 17 years, with a surge in permanent job openings as well at what's typically a seasonal hiring time of year. And according to Recruiter.com, candidate sentiment, which measures how open people are to new roles, that increased for the first time in nearly a year. And recruiters now have a record number of positions to fill. Joining me now is Evan Sohn. He is the CEO of Recruiter.com. Evan, it's good to have you. I'm surprised that candidate sentiment is only increasing for the first time in a year, because we have all these stories about, high quits rate and YOLO and all this stuff. So could you unpack that for me?
Yeah, well, first off, Kelly, thank you so much for having me again to talk about the Recruiter.com Recruiter Index. And yes, candidate sentiment is up for the first time since November 20. We've been talking about it's a candidates market, and it still is a candidates market. I think the Great Resignation is really upon us. Companies are really adjusting. We saw hybrid roles jump to now 42% of what the recruiters are working on now. That is now past remote work or in-person work only. Compensation in terms of a priority is only 31% of the total priorities for a candidate. So we're really seeing candidates now, and I think companies, and we talked a few months ago about companies adjusting to these candidates, and I think they're finally catching up.
Is that, it almost feels to me like that can't be true. Like when push comes to shove, Evan, will people always just take more money? It's amazing to say compensation is only 31% in terms of kind of the most important categories they're evaluating.
Yeah, look, I don't want to say anything about millennials, but new experiences are actually growing up, are getting increasing month over month. Work-life balance is increasing month over month. So there's certain other elements there. And clearly compensation, has to be part of it, because we're actually seeing salaries increase month over month as well. So I think all these factors, it's not an either or, it's really an and both.
Awesome.
And you mentioned before, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and you mentioned before, we're really seeing a soaring demand for recruiters. Just companies now, they need both more candidates, they need more tools to find more candidates, and then more recruiters to work those candidates. And I think if we think about it at a macro level, it's much, much easier to interview for a job now. So you're going to see candidates look around for the job that's going to give them the best experience, the best work-life balance, whether it's a hybrid role and compensation. And since it's easier to interview because we're using all this digital technology, you need more candidates in your pipeline in order to find those candidates. And I think that's really causing a serious surge in the demand for recruiters.
So as we think about, tomorrow's numbers and what that might look like, one of the narratives has been that, companies want to hire more than they can. And that's been putting the brakes on hiring to some extent. So, is that true? Kim last segment was talking about how technology is going to replace people. And in some areas like trucking, you feel like that has to be true. If they literally cannot get enough people to move stuff around the country, at some point, autonomous is going to have to step in or some other way of filling that gap. What does it look like for you in terms of the ability to fill these roles ultimately? It's great that there's a lot of candidates. It's great that there's a lot of openings. But at the end of the day, are positions getting filled?
Yeah, so great question. And, we always say that the number that we report on, or the number that's going to be reported on tomorrow, are the net new jobs. We actually saw a surge. We've been tracking this for 3 months now, of the roles. Are they new roles or backfill roles? Last month, it was 44%, up from 40% the prior month. Now it's 50%. So 50% of the roles that the recruiters are working on are actually backfill versus new. And what we're hearing anecdotally from our clients is they're not hiring fast enough to account for this churn. And that's why we really think this Great Resignation is really upon us.
That's very, very interesting. And I think you would agree from your point of view, positive for hiring trends in the next couple months?
Absolutely. And again, it's positive for hiring trends, but we're seeing backfill really taking a bigger role than new jobs. So really keeping up with those roles that the companies need to handle, not just to expand, but to really backfill the overall roles themselves.